This week's video is all about the things I'm doing to change my life. So this kind of process all came about really with a growing frustration over the last few years. This was a frustration born primarily out of work. A lot of the issues surrounding my work were creative really. So I'd been doing it for 4 years and it wasn't a subject matter that I was necessarily all that engaged with. And I think over time the interest in that kind of dwindled a little bit, and then that in turn impacted my creativity. So it was a little frustrating from that point of view. And there were kind of things I tried to do to make that better, but I think in a way it kind of sped it up and made it a little bit worse. Because I wasn't getting creative fulfillment from my role, I then sought to get it from outside. So I was coming home from work and I was trying to take on a number of creative projects, basically in my free time after work and at weekends, and I found this incredibly difficult to do. And that's mainly from a time point of view. So I've got a young family and there's all the demands surrounding that, plus everything else going on in life. And I wasn't able to produce the kind of stuff that I was wanting to produce. The main reason behind it was I just didn't have the time to do it. That frustrated me even more. I knew what I wanted to do, but I just couldn't do it. So I had the frustration from work, I had the frustration that I was creating for myself at home, and it all caused a bit of a mess really. And that's when I started to look at the individual aspects of my life and try and work out, okay, what do I want to do and what don't I want to do? And the first thing I looked at was this time. We've only got a certain amount of time and I wanted to make sure that I was maximising what I was doing. So let's go and have a look at how I considered time. Okay, so when we look at time, we all have a certain undetermined time to live. And let's say each of us gets 100 years, probably unrealistic. We'll go for 90. We've already lived for a certain amount of time. I'm just coming up to my 37th birthday. So I've been alive for nearly 37 years. So we'll shade them out. My son's pens are running out, so I'm gonna have to change pen. So this gives me the time I've got left, in theory. Current scientific thought suggests that we should sleep for 8 hours a day. And 8 hours is a third of the day. So basically, a third of our lives we are asleep. So I can probably shade out a third of this here for sleep. So you look at this now, and that's quite a scary thing to see. All this time is gone or accounted for. So I've only got this left. And that's assuming I live to 90. What am I going to be able to do realistically past the age of, say, 80? I mean, who knows what I'll look like, but work-wise, I can't see myself doing all that much past the age of 80. And really, past the age of probably 75. There's not a lot of people work past the age of 70, never mind 75. So this is kind of like very conservative estimate. That's not a lot of time once you consider sleep, retirement. I mean, I'm actually going to do this because if I'm working until I'm 75, then something's gone really wrong. I have got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 years. Got that much time to fit in everything I want to do work-wise and family-wise and everything else. And 16 years is a long time, don't get me wrong, it is a long time. But when you compare it to all the time you've got, it's quite a scary thing to look at. So yeah, this new perception of time has really kind of focused my attention in how I spend it, how I want to spend it. I've got to really kind of be stringent in how I spend my time if I'm going to feel fulfilled with what I'm doing during that time. And if I'm able to do this, I should be able to keep my sort of stresses and anxieties at a fairly low level or remove them completely. So I read something or saw something online that basically led you along the lines of looking at what is really important in your life and starting from there. So that's what I did, and that's where I devised the 5 pots, which I'll talk about now. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is how I use my time, or how I want to use my time. And these are based around the most important things to me. And there's 5 things, and these are in no particular order. So I've got my family, I've got my marriage, I've got my health, I've got my work, and I've got my social circle. The way I like to think about it is that each one of these is a pot. And the things that fill these 5 pots is time. And as I discussed, I've only got a certain amount of time. So because I've only got a certain amount of time, I know I can't fill every single pot to the top. So I've got to distribute my time equally, or as equally as I can, between the pots. So I need to focus on paying into each of these pots equally. Now, equally doesn't mean time in this regard, because the amount of time I spend at work is completely different to the amount of time that I spend on my health. If I spent 8 hours a day running, I wouldn't have much time for work or family or social, and I'd probably be asleep the rest of the day just because I'd be so tired. But I know roughly how much time I need to spend in each of these. And what happens is, if I spend too much time in one of them, so say for example I worked too much, it'd take it up to here. Taking it up to there would have an impact on all the other pots. I could also put more time in something like this, but that would then impact the others further. And I know this from experience, so if I do something like this, like I was doing last year, I was working all day and then trying to work into the evenings as well. These were all suffering. And when these suffer, I face an internal struggle, and that can manifest itself in a number of different ways. So I talked about struggle then, and struggle to me is basically what happened last year. It was a period of intense stress, which then led to anxiety and depression as well. And that really affected me. It led to me feeling incredibly trapped at work. Walking away from a salary job is a very difficult thing to do. And it began to just consume all my thoughts. This whole work change didn't seem possible, but I had to make it possible. And this was distracting me. I was coming home from work and it was the only thing I could think about. I wasn't there properly for conversations with my kids and my wife and my friends as well. I was in a real kind of confused state about what I should be doing, and the more I thought about it, the more thoughts it created, and the less time I was then able to do on other things, which built up further frustrations that I wasn't fulfilling myself creatively. And this kind of cycle continued, and then it also began to consume other areas of my life as well. So when I'm feeling down, I don't necessarily eat very well, and I stop exercising, and then that in turn leads to an increased sense of depression being pressed down. I was pressed down by this negativity, and I was pressing myself down by not eating right and not looking after myself, and it just continued to fuel itself. And it was kind of from looking at how all these things played into each other that I developed almost like a new way of living. And this new way of living was a change in my habits, a change in the things I do on a day-to-day basis. And that's something that I've built up and learnt a lot about over the last year, really. And it's been really difficult and it's been really stressful at times, but this is kind of how it's ended up now. So I've tried a lot of different things over the last year: meditation, yoga, affirmations, visualizations, breathing exercises, running, cycling, weightlifting, eating well, not drinking, removing all sugar from my diet, reading a certain number of books, watching films, not paying attention to news, not paying attention to social media, journaling, gratitude journaling, and the list kind of goes on and on and on. Initially, I set myself a list of things I wanted to do every day, and these were things I'd learned from various websites and books. So I had this list, and I'd check it off every day whenever I completed that specific task, whether it be meditation or journaling or whatever. And I could see the positive benefits from it. But because I was kind of in a bit of a period of mental turmoil at the time, whenever I missed ticking off on a particular day because life got in the way or I just forgot to do something or whatever else, I'd take that quite badly, and I was quite self-critical for missing one of these key things that I'd said to myself that I needed to do. And that in turn had a worse impact than actually doing the task. I decided to just stop doing everything at that point because missing them was stressing me out that much that it wasn't worthwhile trying to do them. The negative was outweighing the positive. So I completely removed them from my life for sort of 4 or 5 weeks. And whilst taking that focus away was a beneficial thing straight away, over time it wasn't. I know these things like meditation, journaling, whatever else, they were having a positive impact on me until this kind of missing a session negativity turned up. So I realised at that point I needed to be kinder to myself and to let myself miss sessions almost. So if I missed it for a day or 2 days, it didn't matter. As long as I carried on doing it going forward, that was fine. It only became a problem really if I was missing it for a week, because I knew that I'd have a negative impact on my mental health. So as long as I was doing it more often than I was not, that was a really good thing, and that's where this thing called Kaizen plays in. So I've learned about Kaizen online, and Kaizen it's a Japanese way of working. It basically involves getting a little bit better every day. If I just sort of bear that in mind every day, if I just bear Kaizen in mind every day, just that little bit better, if I'm doing something on each day that improves who I am and pushes me towards what I want to be achieving, then I can't ask any more of myself than that. If I just keep doing that, I'll get to where I want to be. And that's where I kind of thought, well, I need to look long term rather than short term. And I was just looking short term. I was looking at, right, I need to do this for a week, and at the end of the week I'll feel better. And that wasn't working. If I just look long term and say, right, if I keep doing these things over time, in a year's time or however long it takes, then they'll have an incredible impact on my life and how I'm living my life. And that's what I've been doing. And I've been experimenting a bit. I think Matt Diavella, who's a YouTuber, does this really well, and he's been experimenting doing different things for 30 days this year, and he put a video out last week where he was trying to pick up 3 new habits in the next 30 days. So I thought I'd mimic it, and I've even mimicked the exact habits he's picked, which are cardiovascular exercise, hydration and reading. Touching back on what I described earlier, he's implemented something called the 2-day rule, and I think this is really good thing. And basically you can miss a day, but you can't miss 2 days, and I think that just keeps the momentum going. It keeps the momentum going, and it helps you to build these habits. That's what I've tried to do. Over the last 7 days, I've been on 4 runs, 2 bike rides, I've kept myself hydrated, and I've read every day, whether that be physical reading or listening to an audiobook. And I can already tell the difference it's had. So that plays into something else. By kind of journaling and writing things down, I can look back a week and look how I was feeling, and then look at the improvements this week. That's how I kind of work out what works for me and what doesn't work for me, and what I can afford to give the time to in my daily life. So without all this in place, I genuinely don't believe that I can maintain my positive mental health, and it's because of this that over the last few months I've been able to put that stressful period behind me. It's taken longer than anticipated. I'm getting to a place now where I feel so much more positive about everything, and it's having a really great impact on my life. Now, it does seem a lot. It seems like a lot of stuff to do, and it can be a little bit overwhelming, but when I consider the alternative and how I felt, how I described a little bit earlier, it's a no-brainer really. I have to do these things to improve myself, move forward, keep myself creatively sharp, and just make sure I keep improving. And all this really feeds back to time and realising its importance, its limitations, and also my relationship with it as well. Yeah, that's kind of a rough structure of how I've changed and I'm trying to change my life at the moment. And the main change is the work thing, going from working for someone to working freelance, and that's opened up more time to pursue what I want to pursue. And in my mind, as long as I can continue to pay the bills and pay into my 5 pots the right amount and continue this process of Kaizen, this continued learning, then that should allow me to live my life in the way that I want to live it. So I hope that this video's been useful. I hope it's been interesting. I hope it's Hope it has an impact on at least one person and makes you maybe think about how you can spend time a bit more efficiently in your life. Let me know anything in the comments that you think would be helpful in addition to this, anything that you might have taken away from it, anything that you may have changed in your own life that you think's had a really good impact. And if you could subscribe to the channel as well, if you're not already subscribed, that would be great. And like the video as well, that would be really appreciated. And thank you very much for taking the time to watch this, and until next time, see you later.